Chapter 6 of Poppy. Chapter 6 is called Standing Before Mr. Oakax. The leaves on the oak trees around Mr. Oakax's oak shielded him from the rain, but Poppy and her father were being drenched. The owl's head, moreover, was pulled down between his wings, while his eyes, enormously wide were and unblinking, gave Poppy the sensation that there was nothing they might do or even think of doing, which he could not and would not see. To Poppy, he seemed to be pure power and fury. Wanting to look away, she glanced at the base of Mr. Oakax's tree. There lay what appeared to be a mound of pebbles. Gradually, a ghastly realization came over her. What she was seeing was a mound of Mr. Oakax's upchucked pellets, the closely packed and undigested bits of fur and bones from his dinners. Those are those owl pellets that I was telling you about before. Sorry. The vision made her blood turn cold. Only the sound of Mr. Oakax's sneering voice jolted her back to alertness. "What do you want, Lungwort?" the owl demanded, his claws continually flexing on his perch. Flexing, meaning he took his claws and was like gripping the branch and ungripping it. Lungwort, holding cap in his hand like an empty bucket, said, "May I wish you a very pleasant evening, Mr. Oakax." "It's not very pleasant," Mr. Oakax returned with a snarl. "No, well, you're probably right about that, Mr. Oakax," Lungwort replied, straining to sound jaunty. "But April showers, as the song goes, bring May flowers, and I," Mr. Oakax all of a sudden clacked his beak. "Lungwort, it's summer. Did you come here to sing to me some silly song, or do you have something important that you'd like to say or ask?" "Well, in fact, I did bring—" "Hurry up, please. I have not eaten my dinner yet, and I'm hungry." "Well, yes, of course," Lungwort responded. "I understand perfectly." Lungwort hastily put on his hat, not noticing until too late that the cap had filled up with rain. It's kind of funny. Water cascaded down over his head. With a nervous shake, he fumbled to unroll his speech paper. Before he could get it out, Mr. Oakax's eyes grew bigger. "Who's that?" he demanded as he moved his head about to bring Poppy into better focus. "Forgive me," Lungwort said. "I've been rude. This is one of my dutiful daughters." Poppy, step forward. Look up. "There's the good mouse. Mr. Oakax, may I please introduce you to Poppy? This is Poppy." Prodded by her father, she stepped forward gingerly. All she could see was Mr. Oakax's eyes. She felt not just looked at, but attacked. "Poppy, eh?" he growled. "I think we've already met." "One of my sweetest," Lungwort offered. Mr. Oakax ignored him. Instead, he said, "What happened to your nose, little girl?" I scraped it." "A close call, I'd say." "Why, yes, sir." "Little girl mice should be more careful." "Yes, sir." "Do you understand me?" Poppy longed to run away. Lungwort nudged her. "Poppy, dear, Mr. Oakax asked you if you were understanding him." "Yes, sir, I do," Poppy squeaked with a bob of her head. So here is the picture of Poppy. "All right, then," Mr. Oakax said. "Now be a good little girl and come stand under my tree while I talk to your father." Hating herself for acting so fearful, queasy at the thought of getting closer to that mound of pellets, Poppy appealed to her father with a look. Lungwort, however, only nodded. "Move it," Mr. Oakax snapped. Averting her eyes from the pellets, Poppy crept toward the tree, the flag dragged behind her. But when she reached the spot, she was unable to resist the fascination of the horrible mound. Once she looked around, she caught sight of something that glittered. Here's the picture of Mr. Oakhex. So again, once she looked, she caught sight of something that glittered. All right, Lungwort, Mr. Oakhex said, let's hear what you have to say. Thank you, sir, thank you. Lungwort held out his piece of paper. Then the nimbleness of water, as well as the rain, had drenched it. All the same, he tried to read it. Whereas Mr. Oakhex, great horned owl, ruler of Dimwood Forest region, who, out of kindness and wisdom, protects all the members of the deer mice family. Whereas the said family of deer mice living in Gray House, in return of Mr. Oakhex's protection, have agreed to ask permission whenever they wish to move out. Whereas the deer mice family, having grown so great in numbers, need a second place of habitation, so as to maintain and enhance their lives with sufficient food. And Lungwort paused. He shook the paper. And what? Mr. Oakhex demanded. The paper is somewhat wet, Lungwort apologized. So is the style, Mr. Oakhex observed. Go on. Lungwort cleared his throat and continued to read. Whereas Mr. Oakhex, protector of the deer mice, is famous for his kindness, generosity, and compassion. Oh, wait, stop. Yes? Repeat that. What? Repeat that line about me. About kindness, generosity, and compassion? Right. I like it. It's well written. Why, yes, thank you. I wrote it. Whereas Mr. Oakhex, protector of deer mice, is famous for his kindness, generosity, and compassion. Therefore, said deer mice of the Gray House humbly petition, said Mr. Oakhex, to... Well, get to the point, Mr. Oakhex screeched in exasperation. I'm sorry, Lungwort said. The rain has washed away the rest of my writing. Then, just dump it. Please say what you want, the owl boomed. We humbly request your permission, Lungwort said, to move. Move? Yes. Why? I said there are too many. We need more food. Where do you want to go? We want to go to the new house. First, Mr. Oakhex blinked. Next, he swiveled his head around, frowning first at Lungwort, then down at Poppy, then again at Lungwort, and finally he said, You mean that new place up along Tar Road, beyond Newfield? Poppy thought she heard something new in Mr. Oakhex's voice, and she tried to grasp it. Yes, sir. Mr. Oakhex hesitated. Well, have you been there? Now Poppy was sure. It was uncertainty that she had in her, I'm sorry. It's hard to read to a camera and not to you kids. Here we go. Now Poppy was sure. It was uncertainty that she was hearing in her father's voice. Have you been there? Mr. Oakhex demanded shrilly. Well, the truth is, Lungwort said, my friend Mr. Yes or no, the owl screamed. Well, no, not exactly, but my friend told me it would make an excellent source of food for half of the family. And, Lungwort, Mr. Oakhex interrupted, I forbid you to move to the new house. What? Lungwort gasped, flapping the rain away from his face with his paw. The word had all but struck his throat. Permission denied, Lungwort. You cannot move to the new house. But why? Why, sir? Because I said so, that's why. But the Gray House, that area, it just does not provide enough food for us. It's urgent that some of us move out so that we can survive, and no new house. Now, I've got dinner to catch, so you'd better skedaddle. Unless, of course, you want to please me by leaving me your daughter. Then, the owl chuckled, I would reconsider. But Mr. Oakes leaned forward. Hoo-hoo! He wailed in his loudest and lowest voice. The sound exploded over them. Poppy, clasping her ears to her hands, paused to her ears, ran out from under the tree toward her father, who was still standing there, stammering, but, come on, Papa, Poppy urged, trying to turn her father around. We'd better go. With difficulty, she turned him so that they could leave. Lungwort, Mr. Oakes called suddenly. Lungwort whirled so fast that the thimble fell off of his head. Bowing, smiling, he began. You were just teasing, weren't you? Listen to me, Lungwort, Mr. Oakes cried. I've 2 more things to say to you. First, pass the word among your friends that I've spotted a new porcupine around Dimwood. Porcupine? Lungwort echoed dumbly. A particular vicious one. But don't worry, I'll protect you. Second, it's about your daughter there. If you want a reason for my refusal, ask her how she and I met before. Reason? She didn't ask permission to go to the hill. That's why you can't move to the new house. Yes, but... Now beat it, Lungwort, now. Come on, Papa, we'd better leave. Lungwort glanced down for his thimble hat. It had rolled away. It was Poppy who retrieved it and put it on his head. Resigned, a sagging Lungwort allowed himself to be led away. Poppy glanced at her father. All traces of dignity were gone. The wetness of the rain down his face was not rain, but was now tears. Poppy hardly tried to keep the flag aloft. As they trudged home, she kept stealing looks into one of her paws. In it clenched something she had pried from one of Mr. Oakes's pellets. Try to guess what it is. What do you think? Again, I'll read that part again. As they trudged home, she kept stealing looks into one of her paws. It was clutching something that she had pried from one of Mr. Oakes's pellets. Anyone have a guess? It was Ragweed's earring. Here's the picture. All right. That's the end of chapter 6.